Hey, insiders. Have you ever wondered what it takes to promote and book superstar acts such as Madonna, Guns N' Roses, and Bob Dylan, just to name a few? Well, if you have, then you don't want to miss this episode with Michael Chugg, founder and CEO of Chugg Entertainment, one of Australia's leading independent concert promoters. We discuss why Australia is such a vibrant and healthy music market, as well as the opportunities that exist for new and developing artists. This is one episode you can't afford to miss. Coming right up.
This episode of the MUBUTV Insider video series is brought to you by the Music Business Registry. The Music Business Registry is the leading music industry publisher of the most up-to-date contact information for major and independent record label A&R, music publishers, artist managers, music attorneys, music supervisors, and much, much more. The Music Business Registry is the trusted industry standard and source serving the music business community for over 30 years with the most accurate and up-to-date contact information available. Their titles include the A&R Registry, the Film and Television Music Guide, the Music Publisher Registry, and the Music Attorney Registry. All of their publications are available in PDF, CSV, or online subscription. Visit musicregistry.com and use coupon code MUBUTV10 at checkout. That's musicregistry.com. Coupon code MUBUTV10. When you're ready to put your music to work, musicregistry.com.
We're coming back to you live from MusExpo here in Hollywood, California at the Roosevelt Hotel. And we managed to catch up with Michael Chugg of Chugg Entertainment, one of Australia's leading concert promoters. Michael, thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks, Rich.
I really
Pleasure
appreciate
to be
it.
here.
You've been in the concert business for, I guess, well over 30 years now in Australia.
I celebrated my 50th anniversary last year.
50th. Okay, then I stand corrected. 50. Tell me, Michael, what is it that makes Australia such a unique market for live music? It's such a healthy market.
It is a healthy market based on the population. It's per capita, it's in the top 2 or 3 in the world. So people like going out to concerts. Music's a big part of our lives down there. And it's been a pretty progressive concert industry since the late 60s, really. With the coming of the internet, it's even gotten bigger, you know. And
how so?
Well, as the population's grown, one of the biggest problems back 15, 20, 25 years ago was that many genres of music didn't have an audience because there weren't enough people. So you had a lot of mainstream rock, mainstream pop, radio-based. These days you've got, because of the internet, you've got all sorts of genres of music that support themselves. And you have little acts, big acts, middle-level acts, unknown acts, retro acts, all coming into our marketplace. I mean, it's been a joke for many years that there's probably more promoters in Australia than there are in the UK, for instance. So it's a pretty busy market and pretty hectic market. I ran Frontier Touring with Michael Gudinski. We started in 1979. We started bringing in the new wave acts, Police, Squeeze, Reckless Eric, and acts like that. And then through the 80s, we started to bring in people like Neil Young and Bob Dylan. And in the 90s, we were doing the Madonnas and the Guns N' Roses and the Billy Joels. And then in 1999, we were starting to do a lot of unknown bands. First Radiohead tour we did around their single Creep. The tour lost money. The Bean Counter was bitching and moaning that we were doing unknown acts and losing money. And also, the internet was starting to raise its head. So I left Frontier in 2000 and started Chugg Entertainment because I felt that there was something about the internet that was going to change things. And I also wanted to continue to bring unknown acts. And, of course, one of my still clients today is Radiohead, who last time they came to Australia, we sold 60,000 tickets in 6 minutes with no advertising. It was all done on the internet. So what I set out to do, we've done. And, we last 2 years ago, Susan Heyman, who works for me, found a Canadian band called City and Colour. We brought them to Australia, played 200 people. Last tour they did 50,000. Around the same time, she was in Iceland and found a band called Monsters and Men, who are coming back this year doing arenas and headlining the big Splendour in the Grass Festival. I discovered this kid that played like an old black blues man a few years ago called John Mayer. We brought him into Australia, 200 seaters. His last tour, even without a big new record, did 80,000 people. So it's all about, we love getting involved with acts. Coldplay, the first time they came down, they played 400 seaters. The next time they played 5,000 seaters. The next time they played 10 to 15,000 seat arenas. And the last tour they did, we played multi-stadiums, 50,000 people, 2 in Melbourne, 2 in Sydney, da-da-da. So that's what we really enjoy doing.
Michael, I know you recently started a new independent music arm and you've started a label. And my question to you is, why now? Why this particular aspect now at this time in your career?
Well, basically, I was starting to think, you know, given all the contacts I have worldwide and the amount of people I know, and the fact that we can bring totally unknown English or American or Irish bands into Australia and build them into big acts, why can't we take Australian music and do the same thing? And at the time I was thinking that, I got a call from an old muso that used to be in a band called Yothu Yindi, who were a big Indigenous band, Australian band in the 90s. And he said, you got to hear these kids. He was from Papua New Guinea, and he said, you got to hear these kids. I've been teaching them to play and sing during their school years. They've now moved to Brisbane because Papua New Guinea is a pretty scary place, and once these kids get to puberty, it's time to get out of there. And he said, you got to hear these kids. And I went, oh, I don't know, you know. And he hassled me for about 4 months. And in the end, they flew down to Sydney and they did a little 3 or 4 song showcase in our back office. Terrified they were. They'd hardly ever played live. Anyway, they did 4 songs, and the harmonies are what I call Pacific harmonies. They've got that freshness and happy vibe of the sun and the sand. And the songs were amazing, and they were called Shepherd. So they were just recording an EP, and they had nothing going on. And we decided that the best way to deal with it would be to set up a label and put it through a distributor so that we could control it, manage it, and promote it ourselves. So we did that, and they had this EP, and their father, before I'd got involved, had done a deal for them to play for the Australian consul in New York at the summer stage as part of an Australian celebration. And I said to the dad, well, are they paying airfares and everything? He said, no, we're getting $200. And I said, well, if you're going to go all the way to New York and do a show, we might as well go around the world. So I rang my friends in South Africa who have a huge festival outside of Johannesburg called Oppie Koppie. I rang a friend at Mama in London, and he put us on to do a couple of shows at a great festival in Oxford called Wilderness. And then we had the summer stage, and I rang my mate Sat Bisler, said, I got this young band I'm bringing to America, and can you help me do a Viper Room? So we did this round the world trip, and we had the EP with us, and it wasn't getting any traction in Australia. They were totally unknown. And anyway, Sat put one of the songs, a song called Let Me Down Easy, on his Passport Approved radio show. Mm-hmm. And Mark, the program manager at 94.7 in Portland, heard it on Sat's radio show and put it on mainstream radio. And within 2 weeks, it was the #1 most requested song on the radio in Portland, which is a great market, as you know, for 6 weeks. So they went home, nothing was happening, and then all of a sudden this young DJ guy who also has a television show was given the EP, and he listened to it and went, wow, these songs. And he Googled the band up and he saw what was happening in Portland and a couple of other places that Sat had put us on. And away it went. It got picked up on mainstream radio. It became the 4th biggest selling Australian record of the year, double platinum. And then we were still touring. We went to CMJ, went around the world 2 or 3 times on the money that we were making in Australia, because, you know, $1.12 a download, 150,000 is not too bad. So we were using all that money, and then the kids wrote this song called Geronimo, which is this year has become a worldwide smash. It's up to 900,000 in America, 2.5 million worldwide, platinum in 15 countries in Europe. And I've started to make money out of touring Europe and Asia, and the only 2 territories in the world that haven't broken properly yet are France and the UK. So that was great. And at the same time, this young kid from Queensland, Brisbane, turned up in my office. A publisher, Ian James, had rung me and said, "You got to meet this kid." So he walks in, he's got these 2 bands, and we talked for a month or so, and we decided we'd officially get Chugg Music going as a management, recording, doing it indie in Australia, and then finding partners worldwide. And so then I found another band, famous Australian actor Brian Brown, kept hassling me about these 2 Limeback, Oliver and Louis Limeback, kids from the northern beaches of Sydney, called Lime Cordial. So we took them on. And now after 2.5 years, this is our newest sample. We've got 17 acts that we either manage and record or just manage. We've just done a worldwide deal with Dotan, the Dutch act that's breaking big worldwide. We've got Canadian bands, all sorts of acts worldwide now. So, yeah, Chugg Music, there you go.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So,
Thank you for that.
So it's worked. So Shepard got a deal with Decca and Universal Worldwide, Republic and Schoolboy Records, Scooter's label in America, and away it goes. We've got the Griswolds, one of the bands that Andrew brought with him from Brisbane, currently touring America with Walk the Moon. They've had 3 top 10 airplay songs on Alt Nation and alternative radio, so it's growing. We do a lot of country.
Interesting. I was going to say that that Australia seems to be a market that's very open to American country music.
Yeah, well, for many, many years they wouldn't come. You know, there was 300 or 400 markets in America, and why bother? And a few years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago, we had Alan Jackson down there, and it was very successful. He's since been back again. And when he was down there for the first time, he said, "Oh, people have been trying to get me to come here for 30 years. If I hadn't known it was this good, I would have come a long time ago." And what also happened with country music is, a perfect example is the Dixie Chicks. An English friend of mine, Simon Renshaw, moved here. He was tour accountant for ZZ Top. Anyway, he moved to Nashville. I was in Chicago at a CMA meeting and conference, and I turned up at the hotel, and there was a bottle of red wine and this demo CD, and it was this band called Dixie Chicks, and I spent all day looking for Simon, but he wasn't there. He sent it up. Anyway, they signed to Sony. We took them to Australia again, a couple of 100-seaters, and we've done 3 arena tours now. They're about to do another one next year, and they do 80 to 100,000 people. So that was really a good example. And the real point of this is that all of a sudden, all these English managers, American managers with international experience are starting to talk to all these acts and going, "Listen, America ain't the world. You've got to..." And as the American market has shrunk as such, there's not as many major markets anymore. There's, the international thing has become very important to the longevity of their careers. So yeah, we've done some great country acts. Brooks and Dunn they started it with us. That was the first one. We've had Tim McGraw, Faith Hill down there, and a lot of young ones were starting to work up now.
One of the things I wanted to ask you in particular, Michael, is that a lot of our viewers may be considering, or I know have asked about, the idea of going into concert promotion as a career. And, as such, what would be the kinds of questions or the kinds of, rather than advice, what are the kinds of things you feel someone starting out in that business really needs to know to get a foothold in it?
Well, firstly, they should put their money in the bank and forget about it.
Okay, all right.
Oh, it's a tough business. I mean, if you don't, one of the things I learned early on in my life, is just because you really love an act doesn't mean the public do. So that's one thing you have to consider. And, you know, it's probably more today, it's about the stats, the data, and what is going on there. I mean, you know, back in the 80s and into the 90s, you'd get an act. It's on Sony, it's got a gold record or a platinum record. You'd sit with the label and you'd plan what you were going to do with it. And the record label would throw a couple $100,000 into television promotion. So you'd do a joint campaign of the concerts and the records. Well, these days, it's changed. The record company situation is all, you know, cut to the bone. They don't have money to put into projects. So in a lot of cases these days, we don't even bother talking to them. We ring them up and tell them we're doing the act. Whereas in the past, they do the promo, they do get involved. Well, now we have to do a lot of that ourselves. So you've got to look at all that. The best way is to start off with little acts. And, you know, like when you're a manager and you've got a brand new band, well, you go to your local pub and you do a deal with the owner of the pub, the hotel or the club, and you take the door and, well, you play for beer. And when you start to pull an audience, you move on. And I think that you've got to take that into a promoting area. It's very tough out there these days. You know, you've got health and safety. So all of a sudden there's all these restrictions that weren't there 20 years ago. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. Promoting is a tough game and you've got to just work through it. We are lucky we have a lot of young people coming through and we do, as I said before, a lot of genres of music.
Australia seems to be, I mean, in listening to you, it seems like Australia is very, very open to a lot of international music. Do you find that the same thing is true for new international acts that maybe they, you know, have never heard of before, new artists coming through? Is it an open market for new kinds of bands?
Yeah, well, we've got a band down there at the moment called Peace, and who not a lot of people would know about. We took the Irish band Codaline down there and not a lot of people knew about. But with the advent of the internet, and, you know, you can hear it in the panels here, whilst the general industry, you say, oh, we're doing this tour, and they go, I never heard of that band. But there's an audience out there that are right on top of it. And sometimes it doesn't reflect in record sales. And so you just got to, as I said, it's all about looking at it. And if it's working in Europe, there's a good chance it'll work in Australia. And, you know, it's an investment because a band's going to come down there and they're probably going to get paid $5,000 a night. Well, they do 5 shows, they ain't going to pay their airfares and all the costs of getting there. So it's an investment on both sides. Very rarely these days, but in the 80s and 90s, the labels would throw tour support. Well, there's not a lot of that going on anymore. I mean, obviously acts like Hosier that were blowing up, well, yeah, there was tour support there. But we've had a lot of acts on major labels who said we want to come down, and you get to the point where you're about to announce the tour and the international office in New York or London pulls the tour support. So they don't come. So it's an investment on all sides. We have an independent festival called Laneway, which is a touring festival. We started it 10 years ago and doing the Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth. We then took it to Auckland and 5 years ago started it in Singapore. And we bring bands through, like this year, Royal Blood, Banks, last year, Haim. We had Lord, we'd actually booked Lord before she blew up. When we booked her, she was totally unknown. So Laneway is like a festival, one-day touring festival, and it exposes young indie acts to Australia. And we've been lucky that, you know, one year we had Florence and the Machine, and a month before she arrived, boom. Another year we had Monsters and Men, boom. Another year we had Mumford & Sons. So, and last year Lord. So it's all about booking acts and having the faith. And I have a partner called Danny Rogers who runs a company called Lunatic. He managed Gaudier Gautier, he manages Temper Trap and manages the churches. So he's pretty aware of what's going on, and great ears. So he books it. And, you know, it's a boutique festival. We've seen in Singapore the first year it was 4,500, this year 12,000. Auckland, 4,000 the first year, this year sold out 12,000. Sydney and Melbourne sell out 12 to 15,000. And that's a really important festival because it breaks bands. You know, we've got Florence and the Machine coming back on a new album, playing arenas. We've got Monsters and Men coming back. So it builds clients. And in this day and age when you've got Live Nation buying worldwide tours and paying 3 times as much money as the bands are worth, it's all about having clients and having relationships. And that's what we try and build.
It's interesting, you know, one of the things that has been talked about for so long is the fact that, you know, you see today, based on what you had said about labels not having the money anymore, that the development process of brand new talent, especially from the live area, is coming from the promoters, giving them a chance to develop, giving them these platforms where they can start the career. Because labels, you know, no longer have that money. And they no longer have the personnel or any of it now, and promoters are doing that.
I mean, you know, without the money that Decca and Republic have poured into Shepherd, well, we could never have done that as an independent. Mm-hmm. But to have that base in Australia where you can develop your own music, no one's telling you what to sing and what to play. They either accept it as it is and they roll with it, and if it works, it works. You've still got to have relationships with major labels internationally to make it work. Otherwise, you're really up against it because you've got to go into every marketplace and do a deal. And then you've got to manage every marketplace. So it's balls in the air and see what happens, really.
Man, some really great information coming from Michael, one of the leading concert promoters in Australia. So, insiders, here's the question of the day. What were the most valuable takeaways to you from our interview with Michael? Was it the vibrant and healthy live music market of Australia? Or was it the various opportunities that exist for new and developing artists? Or maybe it was something else that stood out to you. If you have any ideas or experiences that you'd like to share regarding this video, we'd love to hear from you and connect in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to MUBUTV for more information on how to educate, empower, and engage your music career. You can also check out a summary of this episode and everything we talked about in the YouTube description as well. And if you enjoyed this video, we'd really love it if you hit the like button and let us know what other kinds of videos and types of content you want to see on our channel. Hit us up in the comments below. And we'll see you in the next video.